Hey, welcome to Mineral Talks Live, the weekly live webinar that brings you in-depth and in-person interviews with the mineral people from around the world. Mineral Talks Live is brought to you by a joint effort among the Mineralogical and Geological Museum at Harvard University, the Society of Mineral Museum Professionals, and BlueCap Productions. Tune in every Wednesday and stay connected to your mineral world. Now, broadcasting live from beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii, the land of aloha, ukuleles, and shakas, this is Mineral Talks Live. Hello and a jolly good happy Wednesday to all of our viewers out there. Today is March 31st, 2021, and the word on the internet is that tomorrow has officially been canceled. Apparently we'll be jumping directly to Friday, April 2nd, so please make a note. Welcome to our 41st. Wow, that was tough to say. Welcome to our 41st episode of Mineral Talks Live. For those of you new to the show, and for Al's auntie out there, Mineral Talks Live is the weekly mineral talk show broadcasting to you live every Wednesday. I'm Brian Swoboda, the president of BlueCap Productions, and together with my fantastic partners, Dr. Raquel Alonso Perez from the Mineralogical and Geological Museum at Harvard University, and Dr. Eloise Gaillou from the Society of Mineral Museum Professionals, also known as the SMMP, we are thrilled to welcome you to today's show. Our goal in producing this program was to become filthy rich. And that didn't work out, so then we decided that maybe we should focus on creating a program to bring together all the different facets of our mineral world, from curators and curatrix to collectors, dealers, miners, researchers, artists, and the media that serves us all. We hope that in doing so, we form a tighter bond among all of us and foster a deeper understanding of the work that everybody does in our community. Raquel, Eloise, and I try our best to bring a wide range of guests from all over the world onto the show, and by doing so, we feel the show reflects the true global nature of our mineral world. And that includes you, faithful viewer at home. You too are part of the show, and it's your participation in the show that helps to make it what it is. So you see, we're not just creating a live broadcast, we're creating an interactive live broadcast. So come on, play along with us and let's have a few laughs. How can you play? Well, that's a great question. There are actually two ways. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a series of buttons. There's one button labeled Chat and another labeled Q&A. The chat feature allows you to type messages to everyone watching and participating in the show. So when you first sign on, feel free to fire off a chat message to everyone telling us where you're from. If you have thoughts, comments, or embarrassing stories about Al, this is where you can post them. During the interview, both Raquel and Eloise will be very active in those chats, so look for their comments and links along with everyone else's. When they feel it's appropriate, either Raquel or Eloise may turn on their mics and address us directly with questions that you're asking so we can get immediate answer from our guest while we're still on the topic. Now, the second way to interact is with the Q&A function. This allows you to submit general questions that we'll try to answer at the end of the interview. Finally, at about 40 minutes into the program, you may see a window pop up on your screen asking a bunch of questions for our weekly poll. This is one of our favorite parts of the show as it allows us to learn small, random, and oftentimes interesting little facts about our guests. In the end, the show isn't only about minerals, it's about the people too, just like our hobby. And now, direct from London, England, straight off of his world tour for his new album, Striations, we have the lead singer of Alan and the Pegmatites with his #1 hit that's been topping the charts, 96 Tears, I Need Somebody. Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, please welcome to the show the CEO of Gem A and the man who likes his Tanzanite shaken, not stirred, Mr. Hart, Alan Hart. Hey Al, how you doing?
Hey Brian, how are you? I can't believe you showed those images.
Well, hello just everyone. Wait, we've got more.
Oh no.
Now, Al,
pleasure to be here.
Well, I'm so happy that you could join us. Really, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I always am somewhat perplexed by this. Whenever I go to Tucson, I always stop at my mom's house in Los Angeles on the way there and again on the way back. And a few years ago, when I was at her house, I noticed that on her little exhibit here, her jade exhibit, which she has in the living room there was a little thing kind of in the bottom right-hand corner. And when I walked closer to it, I noticed that, oh, son of a gun, it is a picture of you. It's a button of you. What is the deal with that, man? I've never been able to figure that out.
Brian, I had to give a talk at the GIA once, and they asked for a picture of me, okay? And so I didn't have a picture, so I picked that. I found that on my computer, and I thought, oh, I look quite intellectual, you know, I've got nice glasses on, I'm not too bad, and so I sent it to them. Anyway, they edited it. And I turned into some sort of super nerd, and that went everywhere, and I got ribbed so much. And then we went to Westwood Look, and I found everywhere people wearing these badges that some mystery person in our industry and they were being handed out. And part of me was like, I was quite flattered, to be honest, but it was just such a shock to see it. And it was, and they're collectible, very collectible today.
Well, I think maybe we have a number one in Los Angeles, so we're going to hang on to that. Now, Al, on this show, I always love to turn back the hands of time on our guests. Tell us about kind of the first mineral that ever caught your eye. What was it, and why did it call to you?
I'll tell you what, Brian, the first mineral that caught my eye, I was about 7 years old. I was on the beach in southern England, would you believe, in the flint of the chalk. I was there with my dad, and he picked up a flint pebble, and he said to me, look inside this small cavity, and inside was a tiny quartz crystal, which had what he said were crystal faces. And I was absolutely raptured by this thing. I thought, wow. So I spent all day just picking up every flint pebble I could find to see if there was any quartz crystals in there. And, you know, it was the most minor of things, but that was something that really captured my imagination. So that was the first, I suppose, the first mineral specimen you could say that really caught my eye.
I absolutely love it. So it was your father that kind of introduced you to it. This is a picture right here of, I believe it's your father and a young little Al, isn't that correct?
I can't believe you found that picture of me. That's my dad. That's in Battersea Park in London. My dad always looked like a criminal to me, a bit of a thug, and with a cigarette constantly hanging out of his mouth. But you know, he was a very good man, and I miss him dearly.
Well, I love that, Al. I mean, I know the feeling. But now he ended up taking you many times to the museum, and there's something about a Sinkankas book and being your Bible. What's that all about?
Yeah. I went to the Natural History Museum with my dad every holiday, and we always end up in the mineral gallery. He would end up in the bird gallery because he loved bird watching. But then I went to the mineral gallery, and ultimately I said to myself, I'd love to work in somewhere like this. And what happened in the end is that I was actually managed to get a part-time job in mineralogy. I left school at 16, and the reason I left school, I couldn't do sciences or languages together. So my mum said, right, we'll get you a job. What do you want to do? And I said, I'd like to work at the Natural History Museum, Mum, somewhere in the mineral department. And lo and behold, I got a 6-month position there. And so I walked down that gallery. My dad took me, and I went to the door at the far end, and I met this guy called John Fuller, who was my first boss at the museum. And my job was to unpack the Kingsbury collection of minerals. And lo and behold, here they gave me this, Sinkankas's mineralogy. Yeah, mineralogy for amateurs. I hate the word amateur, by the way, because I think many amateurs are fantastic. I would prefer enthusiasts. But, you know, that's what they gave me. And they said to me, learn this book, unpack this collection, and learn as much as you can about mineralogy while you're here.
I absolutely love it. Now, tell me about this image right here.
You're really scraping the barrel now, aren't you? That was, now for the observant among you, I'm on the left, okay, as you look at the screen. So that's me at 16 years old.
That's not you in the center?
No. That would probably me in a few years' time, Brian, I think. Well, I hope. That's Campbell Smith in the centre. He was keeper of the department in 1937. Right-hand side, that's Max Hay, who wrote Hay's Mineral Index. He was a professor in 1953, and that was Christmas party 1981, would you believe? And I was 16 years old with my lovely Beatles haircut almost. And my job really was to just soak up all the information from all of the people that eventually were going to retire and leave. So it was a great privilege for me to work with these, I suppose you call them luminaries, these great mineralogists. That, you know, a young lad like me what an opportunity to work with these guys.
Well, I love it. Now, from here you went to, I believe, this, which was probably the photograph of a young man with the longest legs I've ever seen. And if you want a close-up of the hairdo, there's another one. And I think shortly after this, you had that very unfortunate hairdo that ended up like this.
Well, you know what, Brian? This is what happens in our real world. But now, has my camera crashed again?
Your camera has crashed. We can't hear you, so we'll keep going with images on this screen. This is an incredible picture. Tell us about this. And I think this is one of the great opportunities that you had in that position.
I mean, when I joined the museum, I go, you know.
Hang on, Al. I think we're having a little problem with your audio. Why don't you kind of rewind and tell that story again?
Give me that.
We're kind of coming and going a bit.
Okay, hang on a minute.
Oh no, now you sound good.
Okay, well this is one of those great moments. This is Mineralogy Museums conference. Obviously, I'd spoken to and heard about many other museums, but there's George Harlow on the left from the American Museum, Jeff Post to the left of me, and then Carl Francis from Harvard. And this was the first time I felt like we'd all got together and we were all sharing our stories about our collections, where we work, how we're moving forward. And I just felt at this point that, you know, I'd come quite a long way by this time in the museum. This is about 15 years in, would you believe, I've been there. And it was just a fantastic trip. And I've remained great friends with these three guys to the present day.
Well, I mean, you're kind of in the presence of legends there. And, you know, when we hear stories of the Natural History Museum of London, that's like kind of one of the gold standards against which everything else or a lot of other museums are compared. Tell us, what was it like working there, and how did the layers of the museum kind of reveal itself to you the longer you stayed?
Well, first off, it was an amazing place to work. It's incredible, you know. It had the greatest collection. That's the first thing I remember, and it was very hierarchical. You know, there's a great hierarchy at the museum that when you first come in, you were expected to do things like make the tea for everyone. But of course, as you move through the years, you went up, and I think the main thing was the collection. The depth and breadth, the number of specimens in the collection is just wonderful and incredible. I also think the people were great. You know, the mentors that I had, I can recall names and bosses that even now I look up to, how great they were at nurturing a sort of almost how to teach you mineralogy, how to teach you museology, how to teach you learning. It was, when I look back now, I can see that it was a very prescribed path about that teaching. So for an example, they would send me into the mineral gallery and say, have a look at feldspars. And I want on my desk on a Friday night a little essay about everything you know about the feldspars, but do it from the library and do it from the specimens. So there'd be this like training, on-the-job training every week as you're cataloguing the collections. I would then present this, and some of my bosses then would ask me some questions, and I'd get a bit nervous. But then it was just a great nurturing environment. And I made many great friends. And remember, at the museum, it wasn't just about mineralogy. There were then like 6 scientific departments, and every one of the people in those departments was a leader in their field. So you just learned a lot about academia and about learning. And then ultimately learn a lot about public engagement, how you could present your science in an accessible and meaningful way to the general public who may not have little knowledge of what they're looking at. And your job was to get that knowledge over to them.
Now, Al, was that hands-on training, is that still being practiced to this day?
Yeah, no, it is definitely still being practiced to this day. It's just one of those. It's just one of those. People who stay in museums. There's a longevity. You know, I was there for 34 years, and I know people who've been there over 50 years. And I think you pass down what you learned from your previous experiences. And I like to think that, I know you might be in the audience today. He thinks he was going to rib me, but I'm going to rib him. Was Mike Rumsey? Mike Rumsey is now curator of the museum collection there, and we often speak about this. Is like some of the things that I think I've worked with him is what my bosses taught me in a way. But the great thing about when I interviewed Mike, I took a tray of specimens down for the interview, and everyone said to me like, "What are you doing with a tray of specimens?" And I said, well, if we're going to get a curator, I want to see how someone actually handles the specimens, how they interact with the specimens, and also how they handle them. And I must admit, I put a few curveballs in there. Mike came out with superb flying colours because he'd been curator at Oxford. And so he knew the ropes, and so we were really pleased to get him on board.
Fantastic. Now, do you find that with the current generation that becomes a little bit more difficult? Because my perception is that there's maybe less patience and less willingness to go through all of these kind of training steps. They just want to kind of jump to the meat of it.
No, I don't think so. I think really that, I think everyone, that's a really difficult question without sounding really harsh, but I think that it's all about opportunity. There are very few positions in the museum, so I felt very lucky to be there. And I just look at I think people, you can do your self-learning or you can learn from others. And when I look at the young mineral collectors today, I still see that spark of energy and passion that we all had in museums, but they just don't have the opportunity to maybe work in that sort of environment. And I think social media, as we'll come on to, plays a big part now.
Certainly.
But I do think that I think anyone who loves a subject will want to learn that subject from others and their own self-learning. Now, that's the other thing that's important, is self-learning, because it's easy to learn from others. But I think most good mineralogists who I know have a real desire to self-learn as well. Everyone does.
Well, it could be the very fact that the young generation, that they're applying for a job at a museum, that could be a qualifier right there, in the very sense that if you want to work in a museum, you have already reached this level where you are ready, willing, and eager to learn.
Yeah, definitely. I think when I look back at mine, I was there for 6 months and then they said I would have to go. And I remember my mum told me, "You've got 6 months to prove yourself. You're so lucky to get your foot in the door." And so I really worked hard, I learned. I remember going in every day saying, "I've learned 200 mineral names last night and their chemical formula." And at the last day, I went to see the head of department and he said, "Well done. And actually, we're going to offer you a permanent position." And I was absolutely made up, so I got a permanent position. I went home, Mum burst into tears. Dad was saying, "Oh, that's fantastic." And it was just an amazing time. But I think that when I see there's so much passion for our subjects out there, that's what makes it so accessible, and so every one of us is almost a kindred spirit within our subject matter. It's brilliant.
Well, I mean, big shout out to your mom and dad for being so supportive of you. I mean, that sounds like it was a huge part of you being so successful in the career path that you chose.
No, definitely. I think that's very good. But also, I think it's also the people I work with as well. They were very nurturing. They were tough at times, as usual, and it was just a great time.
That's terrific. Now, working at the Natural History Museum of London, it has such a long history and such an incredible collection. It really must have been fascinating to open a drawer and find things that maybe nobody has looked at for a decade or something. I mean, that must have really added to that excitement for you.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I mean, one of the jobs I used to do was I used to catalogue the collection, obviously, and then also computerize it. So effectively that meant I looked in every single drawer, every single specimen as we added it to the database. And it was hard not to get sidetracked. You'd open a cupboard and you think, "Oh, what's in here then?" And then you discover something. You think like, "Wow, I want to search more of this," but you had a day job to do. the part of the day job itself was the learning on the job. Really, that was the great thing. And I remember opening a drawer of fluorite once, and I'd never seen so many pink fluorites in my life. And someone said to me, "They're really rare. Pink alpine fluorites are rare." But at the museum, we had like 50 of them. And so you had a rather skewed view of the subject matter working in a great museum. But it's only when you go out of the museum environment do you learn some of the rarity of these things truly.
Certainly. And then eventually you started putting together special exhibits, correct? That's
right. I had an opportunity to start exhibiting first in the Mineral Gallery, but then I went to the Paris Museum. They had a diamond exhibition. And I saw this diamond exhibition. I was absolutely blown away by it. And in the end, I came back to the museum and I said, maybe we should do a big diamond exhibition ourselves. Huge undertaking. And they basically they went to our public engagement group, who was responsible for those sort of things, and they said, okay, let's go for it. Make a list, see if you can get what you can get, and if you can get enough diamonds, then we will do this exhibition.
Enough diamonds from the museum's collection or borrowed from outside?
Borrowed from outside, and that really was a fantastic. That was probably one of the highlights of my career at the museum was the diamond exhibition I did a few years ago. A lot worked on it. I made a list, travelled around the world, trying to secure some of the world's best diamonds from some of the most amazing owners, and we did this beautiful exhibition. Unfortunately, the day it opened was the day of the London bombings, so the press all rushed off, would you believe, when we opened. So it didn't quite have the full-on marketing it maybe should have had, but some of the specimens we procured in that exhibition were just fabulous.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, that kind of led you to make the next big jump in your career where you left the museum, you went over to GEMA, which is another time-honored institution, but this time in the gemological world. What was really kind of the catalyst for making that jump?
I think that was most people say, why did you leave the museum? I think the thing was there was an opportunity came up. I mean, I was getting more and more into the gem industry because I always saw gems as really the purest minerals. But the difference was there was a massive associated industry with gemology, $25 billion a year industry. And I met some great friends, and I was thinking, well, I could look at do something else. So the opportunity came up that the Gemological Association was going under a bit of a hard time, and the top job was available. So I pitched my chance. I thought I'm going to apply for this position, and fortunately, I was really able to get that position. What was interesting to me was the Gemological Association of Great Britain was formed initially from the scientists at the Natural History Museum. Back in 1908, because at the time rubies were starting to be manufactured, synthetic rubies were being made. Yeah. And so the Gemological Association was formed as a training facility to distinguish real rubies from these then fake rubies, which we now call synthetic rubies. And it was the scientists at the museum who were teaching people how to recognize them.
Interesting. Now, you must have had a lot of nervousness and a lot of fear about making that jump. You said 34 years in the mineral world with the museum, and now you were jumping into a related yet completely different world. How did you cope with that?
Well, to be honest, I never really made the jump because I remained an associate scientist. So
clever.
You do become institutionalized. They call it. It's a nice, comfortable place to be, but it's very different in the big wide world, so to speak. So I used to, I still do often go back to the museum and do some work there. But I think the big difference for me was it was a business. So we had to make some money to survive in a way rather than a public body. And I know museums are more and more having to make money to survive through their external funding. But for GEMA, it was like keep the company afloat, do some great gemological training. It was a great brand. GEMA is a great brand. It's well known around the world. Its diplomas are recognised. And for me, it was like keeping the brand as good as it is, and also improving our range and our offer and really pushing gemology out there. But I think importantly, it's teaching the student good gemology. And we've done that for so many years now, 110 years we've been doing that. And so for me, it just felt like from one great institution to another great institution in a very symbiotic and relational way. It was great.
Absolutely. Now, being in a for-profit company, I can certainly imagine that there are lots of challenges that you've had over the past year with this coronavirus situation. What has GEMA and what have you done to kind of cross that barrier, and what are you doing moving into the future to ensure a long, nice, successful story for GEMA?
Well, I'll correct you. We're not for profit, so that's one thing. Okay. So anything we do we push back into our diplomas to improve what we do anyway. Mm-hmm. But it was very difficult. When COVID came around, we lost so many students because of lockdowns, and so really we needed to hunker back, and to pull back and keep some of our funding to make sure we remained a going concern, like many companies around us. And I think what I learned from that was to Be decisive, act quickly, make sure your core business is protected in a way, and just hold it out, and then look for business and keep communication going. I think the main thing for this pandemic is keep in contact with your peers, with your funders, with your trustees, with the people around you, so you still maintain that level of things are going to be okay. Because I think so many people are fearful at this time. But I think that, unfortunately, we did have to lose some people, so that was a tough thing to be able to do. Obviously, you're affecting people's lives and careers. But we got through. We are a going concern.
Right.
Things are starting to picking up. And it's been bizarre at GMA because we watch around the world as our students come back from different areas, as other countries go into lockdown. So we have this constant to and fro of lockdown, no lockdown, people coming back, people not coming back. But the important thing was to, that communication and just hanging in there.
Well, that's an important thing to have a heads up messaging that you can send to everybody of confidence and success moving into the future. Now, I know you're developing some new tools there at GMA for future learning. Is that something that you can talk about?
Yeah, we keep that close to our chest, but we're going to release a new course. It's a very an entry level course. I won't go too much into it, but it will be called. Shall I say the name? Yeah, well, we can now. It will be called Gem Intro. So it's an introduction to gems. It will give you a taster, really, of how at GMA we teach gemology, because we don't do it just by remembering and learning. We actually teach you the concepts of gemology. Just like going back to the museum, the way I was taught initially by mineralogy, is that it's very easy to remember things, but it's more difficult to learn the concepts that you can apply, so then you can start identifying things off your own initiative, if you see what I mean, by using those concepts. Mm-hmm. So, for gemology, when you do our courses, you'll be able to, using those concepts, you'll be able to have a good stab at identifying any gemstone, even if it's unknown to you, or know where to get it identified. And also understand whether there's been any treatments and the nature of that gemstone, whether it's natural, synthetic, or imitation. And they're the key things really for training. And I think one thing also about gemology is the practical aspect. Like mineralogy, gemology is very similar in terms of it's a very practical subject. You're handling material, and there's nothing like seeing the real thing. It's all very well reading things in books, but when you actually see it in front of your eyes, that's when you really remember it.
Sure, it's like an experience. I mean, I'm sure walking into the museum was a incredible opening experience for anybody, and the same kind of thing here, where you're actually holding the gems in your hand and you're learning about the things that you're holding. It's completely different than just reading it in the book or online, as you say. But I love the fact that you guys are using the new tools of the future moving forward. Cheers.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you'll find that the online world is opened up to us. I do hope it doesn't become all online, because the personal interaction, I think, is really important, both for your well-being and also for learning. But I do think that our reach will be a lot greater. Obviously, I hope that we will get some good funding from that. And then we do have a plan to produce lots of shorter workshops and more advanced workshops in gemology to cater for a growing need that is throughout the whole of the gem industry.
Wonderful. Well, Al, we wish you the greatest of luck. I'm going to turn the conversation a little bit back towards the mineral world. And as you know, I often refer to you as the James Bond of the mineral world. And I think this image perhaps encapsulates that sentiment more than ever. Of course, the women go nuts over you. And one thing I always truly appreciate about you is your professionalism in just about everything that you do. You're social, you are a bit of a ham at times, but fun to be with. And always serious. So,
how to kill a career in one fell swoop.
Okay, so if we see the want ads coming up, that's Al. Well, Al, being serious for a second, you for many years you have been doing Instagram, and a lot of it. And this is the cover of your Instagram page as of yesterday. And I remember at first we would somewhat mock you because it was like, oh, there's Al doing his Instagram, and you'd always run around, hey, look I've got these many people liking the stuff that I posted. And honestly, a couple years later, we all kind of realized how ahead of the curve you are. I'm going to pull this image back up, and if you look at the top there, you have 39.2 thousand followers on Instagram. And the stuff that you post on Instagram is absolutely amazing. It's amazing not only for the imagery, and I like to call it the kind of like we had the Ken Burns effect that everybody was starting to do in their editing programs, where the still photo would do these pans and zooms and stuff like that. You have this, I'll call the Al Hart effect, where you rotate and kind of zoom in a little bit, zoom back out, and rotate out again. And tell us about what started you on Instagram. How did you know it was going to be huge? And then we're going to take a look at some of the footage that you've shot on Instagram, and you could tell us about why you liked those pieces that you shot.
I'll tell you what, truthfully, Brian, I think one of the reasons was that when I left the museum, I still felt I needed to be attached to the mineral world. When I did the vault exhibition at the museum, I used to watch people how they engaged with the specimens, and it was I'll tell you now, it was always the same. People would look at the specimen like this, and then they back away, and then they look to the side, and then they look to that side of the specimen, then they'd read the label, and then they'd glaze over and then walk away. Every time it was exactly the same. And so I remember thinking, well, if I see this new medium, Instagram, and I thought I'll do a few videos of that. So I think I'd hold the specimen as if I'm looking at it, and I bring it to my face, and I turn it left and I turn it right and show the features and put it back. And then I thought I'd write a short label about it, because in the museum you'd have like 3 sentences to say everything you could, but then on Instagram I had many more characters. So there was a chance for me to start writing away and writing all this stuff and thinking, will people read it, and make it more accessible than purely scientific prose, but challenging as well. I wanted people to maybe read my captions and then go and learn something from it, or go and find out more about it, because there might be a little teaser or a taster there. But I think the funny thing, I'm not really told many people this. At the beginning, I was, taking pictures of my breakfast, and I was taking pictures of nice trees, other things. And then I was thinking, I'm not getting many followers here. What's going wrong? And I knew this lady, Catherine, who was the senior marketer at Graf Diamonds, and we went out for a beer one night, and we were chatting away. And I said, so what do you think of my Instagram? And she went, lose all the personal stuff. And I said, pardon? She went, no one cares about your breakfast or your coffee or your new shoes, Just do pure specimens, what you're doing, and be consistent with it. And if every time you wake up in the morning, and if I ever see a coffee picture, I'm going to ring you up and I'm going to really tell you off. So I didn't. So I got really consistent, kept it straight down the line, and I just saw my followers just kept going up and up. And I was thinking, oh, this is great, And I think, over the years, I've met so many people in the mineral world, both at museums and dealers and friends, that they were sometimes often willing to give me the specimens that I liked. Like, I'd say, can I borrow your specimen for a few minutes? Or I could take a little video for the Instagram. And I was absolutely astonished by their hospitality, about their willingness to give me some of these multi-100,000, even $1 million specimens for me to go outside and do my thing. And I say to all of them, it's without them, it wouldn't have happened. So it's fantastic.
Well, I think it's a combination of your history at the museum, where the people can trust you, but certainly when you read those descriptions, the descriptions are incredible. And I've often asked you, how long do you have to research each piece before you write that description? And you've said, no, Brian, it's just off the top of my head, which is absolutely amazing. I mean, really, hats off to you.
Yes, I mean, I do have to research some of those things, but I tell you what, at the museum, when you used to write in the register, you had 3 lines, and they used to say to me, and say to everyone after me, came before me, you've got to describe a specimen in 3 sentences, and you've got to put in the person's mind what they're seeing. So if I said like a lump of green crystals, that means nothing. You know? So you have to say like a divergent spray of lustrous transparent crystals in a cavity of goethite, 3.1 centimeters across. That immediately gives you an idea what the specimen looks like. And so I was then using my Instagram to put those descriptive mineralogy in so you can describe what you're seeing, and then tell whoever's reading that what's special about that place, whether it's something culturally fantastic, whether it's a really strange locality, whether it's really rare. One thing I do shy away from, I never put prices because I think that can skew what people think about mineralogy. So I never talk about money. It's all about the beauty of nature and the art of nature, because I'm just fascinated by how these minerals grow and what they tell us about the earth.
Well, let me pull up one mineral here. You had mentioned, in some cases, $1 million mineral, and I believe this one qualifies. So let me pull this one up and go ahead and talk about this.
Oh, no, this was a specimen I just fell over. This was a Paraíba tourmaline, would you believe? Not from the Batalla mine. Batalla, found in 1982 in Brazil. These wonderful, the lavender-coloured tourmalines that when you heat-treated them, they go neon pink. We all know them as Paraíbas, some of the most expensive gems in the world. But this one is, crystals on quartz. And when you look at this, you're looking at one of the fascinating magics of mineralogy. Look how deep blue those crystals are with that lilac edge and the way they just sit there on the quartz prism. And they're quite strange to crystals. Usually tourmaline is trigonal prisms, but these are hexagonal. They've grown preferentially on certain faces to give these prismatic hexagonal crystals, but it's the colour that is just superb. And I'm so glad that one, these weren't heat treated, and two, it wasn't cut. And I think this one's called the Paraíba Queen, I think. It's a beautiful specimen.
That's absolutely wonderful. And this has, as of, I think Monday when I recorded this has 26,772 views. I mean, to me, that is amazing. Those are, in the mineral world, those are absolutely crazy numbers.
Yeah, and I think the power of instant power of social media is that how many people would have seen this specimen without that?
Exactly.
It's high end. You'd have to go to Tucson and to look at it, and so it's making mineralogy accessible, I think.
100%. Okay, let's go to another video here. Do you have a preference of what you want to show? Actually, I'm going to show
I gave you some videos. I'll just let you choose if you like and see what you think.
I'm going to show this cut stone. I believe this is a replica. So, just had a crash. As life happens. Let's see. See if I could pull that up again. There we go. This is historic.
No, this is something I've been researching. This is a replica of the Kohinoor diamond before it was recut in 1851. Now the diamond now sits in the crown jewels, but many people don't know it was a Mughal cut, an old Indian cut that came to London from India. This one was made directly from a plaster cast made by the trustees of the British Museum in 1851 because they knew it was going to be recut, so they wanted to capture the original form. And the Indian style of cutting then was amazing. This 187 carats. Look at all of those facets all around the edge there. And I looked at the complexity of this and wondered how and who cut this. And we do think it's a mixture of European and Indian workmanship coming together to produce this diamond. But my main research for this was I thought it's difficult to cut diamonds. They must have used some very primitive tools. And so there was diamond, as many people may know, is differentially hard, meaning you need diamond to cut diamond, but in some directions it's harder than in others. So I did some research. I applied some old crystallographic mineralogy tools and found that the only way they could shape this diamond in this form was to cut in the softest directions. And so all the softest directions of cut are those multi-facets all around the edge. And the harder directions are those two top facets and a few of the gouges and flaws at the side. And so it's for me. This is some great research. I'm just finishing the paper now. It's going to be published in the Journal of Gemology through GMA, and it's just an interesting hark back to the museum, where sometimes it's not only specimens that are really interesting, but it's the ephemera, the plaster casts, the models that hold just as much research interest.
Now that was carved of cubic zirconium, is that correct?
Yeah, cubic zirconia. That was done by Scott Suker. We wanted to make sure that we had a diamond imitation that was absolutely as close to the optical properties you could get. And so when that was first delivered, I remember opening it up, and I almost felt like one of those great Indian Mughal rulers when they first picked it out and went, wow, mountain of light, because the actual diamond, the Kohinoor, means in Persian mountain of light.
Interesting.
So it's a beautiful subject.
Let's go to another cut stone here. I believe this is by Viktor Tuzlakov.
No, this is a John Dyer piece.
Oh, this is John Dyer. Wow.
Award winner. Yeah, John Dyer does these lovely avant-garde cuts. He's famous for it. And this was just like holding the sun in your hand. I mean, when I tilt that stone, it goes dark, and you see those ghost facets at the top. But when you look straight down the main, look how dark the stone gets. All the light that's going into that stone at the front is being reflected out to the front of you from the back, and that's why the stone is so deep. And he uses these cuts in the pavilion just to give that sort of sparkle effect, and it was just an immense piece. This is a Brazilian citrine, by the way, and they tend to be quite pale, much paler in colour, but his style of cut and the lighting effects is just superb.
Well, let me jump to a similar coloured piece, but completely different.
I bet everyone knows what these are. Rhodochrosite from the Sweet Home mine. I mean, I was lucky to go there a few years ago, and with Brian Lees, who took me underground. It was just incredible. Unfortunately, I never found anything like this, but I could see where it came from. And these are some of the most wonderful specimens. State Mineral of Colorado, beautiful rhombic crystals of manganese carbonate. This came out of a cavity. I think it was the Good Luck Pocket. It was 3 by 1 foot, but it was only 2 to 6 inches wide. And so these crystals grew across the cavity and I know we've all read the articles in the Min Record and various YouTubes about how they've carefully extracted these pieces to be, I think, some of the most alluring and best mineral specimens that we have today.
Now, this is incredible because this video has garnered 10,482 views, and it's been online for less than a year. So, again, whatever you're doing on Instagram, cheers. Great job.
I think 10,000 of those views are probably mine, Brian, for that piece, actually.
Okay, I think that may be correct. As big as that number is, I'm going to just about double it when we take a look at this piece here.
Oh yeah, no, this is Golconda mine in Brazil. Strange that the mine was named, 3 mines actually. Golconda was named after the city in India, but a few years ago, 2018, I think, a series of pockets were found, and these fantastic tourmaline sprays were found. These are on white albite with this lovely velvety lepidolite at the bottom, that lilac lepidolite. But just look at the Munich sunshine. I managed to take that outside. Marco Tironi, who owns a piece, let me take it outside. And actually, it's not quite shown here, but it does colour grade. It goes from this lovely deep blue right up to this sort of pastel-y shade, lighter blue and pink at the top. You can just see some pink and green coming out at the very top there.
Yeah, I can see that to the left, just a little bit of pink.
Obviously, the other blue tourmaline is Paraiba. These are indicolites. So the chromophore for this is iron. So it's iron is given this colour rather than the copper and manganese of the Paraibas. But I think, again, look at that. That formed. I find it incredible that these things form in the earth. Yeah. The right ingredients coming together at the right place with the right processes and time to grow as well.
And this is 20,081 views. I mean, wonderful. Yeah. And for anyone who wants to see more of these, look up Alan Hart on Instagram. Let's switch to another tourmaline here. Oops, we got a crash, and there are my boys.
Hello, boys.
Let's go to this one.
Oh, this is one of my favourite mineral specimens. This is from Paprock, another tourmaline, the green cap. I just love this because we all know about the famous blue caps from San Diego that Bill discovered many years ago, as well yourself. And I saw this and I thought, look at that, from this blue light through orange, through yellow, then wham, a lovely green cap. And I'll tell you what, I saw some pictures of this deposit, and they had kilometre pegmites that are quite thin, that sometimes filled with these soft clay cavities, and you pull out treasures like this. And this one's from the Collector's Edge, I think, and Brian Lee's, once again, let me take it out of the cabinet and the Westwood look and have a really close look at it. And I always said to Brian, if I had I won't say, yeah, all right, if I had a lot of money, this would definitely be on my wish list.
That's an incredible piece. 26,950 views.
Yeah, it's a great piece.
Now, Al, when you post these things, do you predict how many views something might get?
I you know what, it's funny you say that. I can usually predict in the first 10 minutes how it's going to do.
What would you predict this would garner in terms of views?
I knew this one. This fluorite would go crazy. This is a Plagenstock fluorite. Now, the holy grail of alpine fluorites, this the beautiful mineral. Look at the colour. Fluorite, it's quite rare to get red colours, but the Alps is well known for it, and also Pakistan as well, and in Peru. But look at this, frosted surface. You've got these little chevron growth zones at the top that sort of reminded me of the Alps, but this one I think was 12 centimetres on edge, and it had this lovely limpid, not translucent colour. And it's important to get these. When I film these things, I like to do it in the evening, actually, because the light is just perfect, especially in Tucson. Mm-hmm. So it just captures it perfectly. And these are actually, what's funny about these fluorites is the yttrium and 2 oxygens and radiation gives you that red colour. That's called an R-center. And you need time to do that. And you usually find that these fluorites are found in the oldest and middle part of the Alps, the granite masses, where so they contain a bit more uranium minerals or uranium-bearing minerals that then they blast the structure and they create those colour centres that give you the colour that you see.
Now, for people who do not have Al kind of in a small window on their screen while we're playing this video, he is not reading this from a script. This is all off the top of his head, his descriptions of it. So you can imagine what his written descriptions mean. Great job. Let's take a look at this. I know this is one that Eloise was drooling over.
Oh, now this is fabulous. Now this is from one of your hosts. This is from Raquel's collection, or should I say Harvard's collection. I saw this a few years ago, and it was like, really? A fire opal from Curating. I think this is Iris Mine. The Iris Mine is quite rare. Actually, that's an understatement. These are really rare. You can get fire opals that don't show play of colour, but this one, the size of a hen's egg, you got these green flashes, you got these red flashes. It occurs in this like rhyolitic matrix. You can see some of the cavities there. And I think Sincankas, this goes back to Sincankas, who described these as being mined for many years, but they used to have a really strange, a long Mexican name, Vitzicapatl, which I think was hummingbird stone. Yeah. And you can see why they were called hummingbird stones, because it looks like the iridescence of the feathers. But Absolutely. I tell you what, this I think this was from, Raquel might be able to tell us, but I think this came to the museum there in 1902 or something from Kunz. I think it was a Kunz specimen, and it is just a brilliant piece. And if you look really carefully, you get there's some tiny, can you see there that black crystal inside the opal? Just on the left, it's just going around the back now. Yeah. There are those inclusions, the hornblende crystals that were there, but they've been retrograde and metamorphosed, and they're now goethites. So it's quite a feature of these fire opals. They have these little goethite black inclusions inside. So it looks like a little garden.
Very cool. Very cool.
Really cool. Really, I'll tell you what, that is a great specimen.
It's a beautiful, beautiful specimen.
Yeah, superb.
Well filmed. Over 25,000 views on this. And
oof, look at that.
Okay, I'm going to jump to one here. It is this is a kunzite, and this is, of the pieces that you sent me, let's see, where is it? Here it is. This has the most views of them all.
Kunzite. This is a kunzite from. Where is this one from? This is from. I think it's from. No, it's not Uricum. Oh my God, you got me on this one, Brian.
Well, this is
That was
from Fine Art
From
Minerals, which is
Fine Art
Ghulam
Minerals. Yeah,
Mustafa.
that's in Munich. Yeah. What is? I love this piece because of the colour, but also those chevrons on the top. I really noticed these. See at the very top there, you get these triangular diamond-shaped chevrons, which I know that from this locality they're really dissolved specimens, have really undergone dissolution. And it fascinates me that when I look at dissolution, crystals grow, but people forget that crystals dissolve, so they remove material. And in the case of this kunzite, I think the C-axis, which is at the top, grows fastest, but also it dissolves the fastest. That's why you get these lovely deep features in the stone. And it's also pleochroic as well, so in certain directions you see a lighter look, but as I turn it around here, you'll see it would go sort of peachy coloured, a lighter colour. It's really hard to cut. It's very brittle. This one hasn't been cut, but it was the clarity of this piece and the way the sun interacted with it and the dissolution that really got me. And I think that one did quite well, actually.
Yeah, that had 49,337 views.
Yeah, 49,000. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And I can't imagine how anyone could light that and show it off better than this, where you see, as you say, those peachy colors with that brilliant violet color there, and you see the transparency of it all. I mean, it's a stunning piece. Great piece of film.
Yeah, this is Afghanistan, actually. It's the Maui pegmatite in Afghanistan. Yeah, it's beautiful. Wow. I'm
going to ask Raquel to go ahead and fire off the poll as we queue up the next one. Everybody talks about Medina aquamarines, and this is certainly not one to scoff at. This is an incredible piece.
Medina is one of those most fantastic occurrences. A pocket was found with a few crystals. They were the most superb specimens, exceptional crystals of aquamarine. Glassy. They escaped the cutter's wheel. Someone bought them, and I think there's about 12 in existence. And one of my goals is to see them all. And I know that Gail Spann had this in her collection, and Jim got it out of the case, and I took it outside. And it was a marvel. Look at a long prismatic crystal. It's got lovely etch figures and growth hillocks all over it. Transparent, partly dissolved. So the top part of that crystal is tapering. And so you can see as you move to the top, look how the colour concentrates in the top. There's optical effects, gives it a nice blue colour, because as you look down that C-axis, it deepens the colour. But it just reminds you of Superman. When I saw this, when he pulls out his palace at the North Pole. And I know that Eloise, I think, she has a magnificent piece in her collection as well at the École des Mines. There's a beautiful one there as well, and they're just so distinctive. But they're all different as well, which is really interesting. And you can see those deep etch figures like little windows all along that prismatic face there.
I mean, you can tell a Medina a mile away. These are absolutely incredible. Yeah, they're highly collectible.
But, and I sometimes think to myself, how long did it take to grow? I think crystals grow in less time than you may think. That's what I found. There's some research being done recently where you won't see a crystal maybe taking 10,000 years as one fall. It might grow in a couple of weeks, a month,
Which is absolutely amazing. And this garnered, I think this is the highest viewed video of the ones that we have here that we're showing today. This is at 67,561 views. I mean, 67,000 for the mineral world. This is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's a testament to the piece, really.
Absolutely.
And,
Well, let's stick with aquamarine for a second, and let's go to this one here.
Oh, yeah. I tell you, this one's from Bill Larson. I tell you, been a great pal of mine for so many years. I don't tell many people this, but when I first at the museum, one of my jobs was to look after the dealers when they came to the collection, and just pick out the specimens that they got, so I could deliver them to the higher ups to see if they want to do exchanges when we did them, or on that sort of thing. But Bill used to tell me his wild stories about his mining, and even he's been so great for me personally in teaching me about minerals at that time. And but this one I saw in a collection, and I thought to myself, people do love minerals that are beautifully transparent. have great clarity, but look at the colour. And when you look at this, all these wispy veils, these inclusions inside the stone, on the top right, there's a lovely fingerprint inclusion. There's something, that's what, you can see. Why is it called a fingerprint? It's actually a healed fracture of fluid. And then sometimes you get these hexagonal patterns. On this one, they got some of the matrix left at the top there, and you get these tiny etched figures. But it was the clarity. And this is, I'll tell you, Brian, we had a discussion about this. I got slight negative feedback from this one because they said, how can you hold that specimen over concrete in a car park? And I remember you told me the story about the world person I was saying you were fearful of dropping them, and it was like, well, no, it doesn't even cross my mind to drop a specimen. He's right, you don't. If I ever thought like that, I'd be thinking I wouldn't be doing this.
Absolutely. Well, it's your job to handle mineral specimens, and if you drop a mineral specimen, you're seriously not good at your job. And so, if you're a professional mineral dealer, then you know how to handle them, and you do, and you're not even a dealer. Let's talk about this one here.
Yeah, there's another one. This was at the Westwood Look, and this was just a beautiful piece. I just love the light interaction with this, how it played with it. And when you look really carefully, as you know, aquamarine often has these diapyramidal faces. At the top of the prisms, you get those low-angled faces. See them? The thin edges. And it's those faces in different combinations and different sizes that give the myriad of forms we see in aquamarine. And that's why aquamarine is sort of one of those minerals that is so collectible. It can look similar, but it can also look very different indeed. And I just thought the clarity here was just superb. Just superb.
Well, we've been talking a lot about outdoor lighting. I want to play a piece here where it looks like you shot this indoors. And let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, here we go. This is a great piece.
Now, this is in the Russell Room at the Natural History Museum, the equivalent to I suppose many people might know the Smithsonian Blue Room. The Russell Room is a treasure trove. Many people who are listening might have been in there. But this is a stibnite, antimony sulfide. Can you believe this grew in the ground? This came from the Ichinakawa mine in Japan, 1893, and it's actually a tourist mine. People were going in there looking at these wonderful, long, metallic, prismatic crystals, taper shaped, and this is what me and Mike lovingly called the sword.
Yeah. And
stibnite's a soft mineral, and sometimes you can see at the very top of this, it often bends. So it's obviously when it grows, the crystals can bend due to external stresses. But I just think this is a fascinating thing, and when crystals crystallize, they usually grow upwards. It's the top faces that grow the fastest, and the prismatic crystals on the side usually grow the slowest. Otherwise, you have big, thick, fat crystals rather than long, thin crystals. And when you look at this, you can just see also that the prisms are striated from the growth, but the top of the faces are perfectly flat, mirror-like luster. And they can tarnish a bit, so when they're exposed to light, they can get a bit dull. It's best to keep them in the drawer or out of the dark. And for its size, I think this is probably one of the best specimens.
That's an incredible piece. Absolutely incredible piece. I want to bring up this hematite and rutile.
Oh yeah, now this is great. Now I love epitaxially grown rutile on hematite from the Alps, but this one I found in Tucson. It was from Madagascar. So you got these big plates of it's a gnarly. I call this a gnarly specimen. It may not have the pristineness of things I've shown, but look at those rutile crystals like a trellis all over it, and that's the epitaxial growth. That means that the rutile has followed the crystallographic orientation of the hematite underneath. So I think epi means on top, I think, and then taxis means of the form below. So it's from the ancient Greek. And I love the way that quartz prism just goes straight through the specimen, right through the centre. And apparently this was a tiny find from Ambattofinandrahana. Everything in Madagascar is long named, beginning with A for the locality. But that was quite one big specimen out of the pocket and a few others. And I thought this was a hidden treasure. And I'm surprised it was still for sale, because I think it's a brilliant, it's a specimen that shows a really good mineralogical feature.
It looks like this was filmed at the Inn Suites. I don't know if you remember where you...
Yeah, that's right. It was at the Inn Suites, well spotted. And I'll tell you what, Brian, as I've done all this Instagram, it's turned into sort of a diary as well. You know, when you look at the specimens and I see them, I can remember specific things, conversations I've had, people I've met, what happened afterwards, and when I look back, it's a really good memory, you know, of a life in mineralogy and gemology.
I love it. I know that we're over time, but I got to just keep going. Here's a simple quartz, an amethyst that is just incredible.
That I saw this 2 years ago, and I was just absolutely raptured. I mean, I think this dude's a person on your show a few weeks ago, Stuart Walensky. Mm-hmm. So this is a Jackson Crossroads, Georgia amethyst on rock crystal. Just look at the quality. You know, pristine crystals. The amethyst is the best color. It does show the really desired hint of red. Every now and then you see a hint of red, but the fact of the stark contrast on the rock crystal, and this is quite a strange deposit because they're tubular pockets and cavities, which seem in places to be totally enclosed. Now, to get amethyst, of course, you need iron as a chromophore radiation, but you see the rock crystal there is perfectly white. So obviously the rock crystal grew first, and then the resulting fluid that grew the amethyst was either enriched in iron to give the colour, slightly enriched, or there was an influx of iron in another solution from an external source, so it wasn't a closed system. And so I think in this case it's just amazing that the long slender rock crystal has this flower of short, squat, magnificently coloured amethyst crystals.
Absolutely, and I know that this is one piece that Stuart Walensky will have in his upcoming quartz exhibit at his gallery in Chelsea. And this is one piece we certainly covered last year in the What's Hot in Tucson.
And on the show a few weeks ago, I saw that. I spotted it in the case as we panned by, and it's brilliant.
Yeah. Great. Well, let's stick with quartz for a second, and let's go to this one.
Oh, now this is another one. This is a Farden. Now, you know, these Farden is quartzes that are elongated, but I've never seen one on matrix. You know, and these are really strange beasts because the quartz grows in cavities, clefts that are actually being pulled apart, and the quartz is constantly healing and regrowing. So you get this very thin vein in the center of them, and then the crystals grow out from the center of that vein. And usually they're detached, they fall out the matrix and they're detached from matrix. But look at this, it's like some sort of fairy castle. It's some like city on matrix in a cleft. And this was in Saint Marie, saw this in Saint Marie, and I just thought this was just brilliant. I really, really love this specimen.
It's amazing to think how this piece successfully made it out of the mountains, because quite often the Australiers are up there pulling this out of, as you said, very small clefts, and they're hanging by ropes. And to imagine that somehow this made it back down off the mountain and onto the market is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, and also the crystals that they grew did survive the stress of growing, because remember, you know, there's a lot of, once they've grown, before we were able to find them, they may have sat in the earth for a few million years, obviously, and so they do survive a lot of tectonic stresses, post-formation tectonic stresses or movements.
Yeah,
so
plus, I mean, you've got the constant freezing and unfreezing up there in the Alps. I mean, it's truly a remarkable piece when you think of the history behind it.
Yeah. Actually, yeah.
Well, you were going to say something?
No, I just said that was from, I think that one was from Afghanistan. That was from Baluchistan. It wasn't an alpine. This one's from Baluchistan.
Okay.
So what's great about this also is the many mineralogy environments, they're the same sort of environment. So the mountain building Alps, the alpine mineralogy is quite similar elsewhere, but there's very subtle differences between the minerals itself. So it's great to see that the classic minerals from the Alps are now being discovered in the mountain, similarly mountain building younger episodes of the Asia Pacific region, where of course India is moving into the Asia plate and forming the Himalayas.
Amazing piece. All right, let's go to Spain for a second here. Here we go.
Oh, this is a Bill Larson piece taken in his back garden. I hope he doesn't mind me saying that, but that is a lovely Berbice Spanish fluorite. And this is one of the first pieces that really got me going on Instagram, because it got a lot of views, and I just felt it was looking like into space, like a nebula. Mm-hmm. You look inside that crystal, there's blues, there's little fractures, little stars. Look at that, you can see it. And actually, you won't hear this, but I put some heavy dubstep music onto this piece, and it went down really quite well, and I really loved that. But it's a great piece.
Incredible. I think we got to start wrapping it up here, but I want to show this other rhodochrosite.
Oh yeah, the rhodochrosite. This one in Tranning Mine from 1970s. The biggest manganese deposit on land in the world, 13 billion tons, I think, of ore there. And in the 70s, they were driving a shaft and they went through a whole series of cavities full of these beautiful red crystals. You know, rhodochrosite, exactly the same mineral as the one which is shown from the Sweet Home mine, but an entirely different morphology. Like, these are called dogtooth spar, you know, these spiky scale-anhedral crystals. They've got a sugary dusting of quartz that's often removed to make them more pristine. But if you look carefully, you can see between the black manganese and the red crystals, there's a slight orange or chilled margin. And so you can imagine this was once totally enclosed in black. And imagine the miners underground, covered in dust, sooty atmosphere, breaking into these red cavities in their light, shining these crystals. And this is they're usually highly fractured or detached. You see single crystals, but this one was sort of half a pocket, and I thought it was brilliant. It's a really great specimen.
You know, that kind of imagery that you described makes this so much more, to me, alive, because you could actually picture in your mind those miners in the tunnels finding this piece and their reaction.
Yeah, and you know, in the past, collecting minerals underground was frowned upon because, of course, it interfered with the actual getting on the job of mining.
Right.
You know, so many minerals were actively discouraged from being collected.
I'm gonna do one more. Gonna end this one on this piece that is named after a good friend of mine. Oh wait, that's just a photo. Hang on. Let me find the video.
The video. Did I send you it? Yeah.
Send it to me. Hang on. Maybe I didn't transfer it over. Here it is. Okay.
This is Lauren Thomasite. Yeah. Well, I saw this at Sam Marie. Lauren Thomas, great friend of many people, came to see me, gave me this specimen, said, identify it. And I looked at this and I thought, don't know. No, this is really interesting. And when I turned it, it went from this crazy cerulean blue colour on the top face to this beautiful yellow. So I immediately thought lazulite, because that can do that, or serendibite, which is much rarer. And he sort of cheated a bit. He said, it's Lauren Thomasite. And it was a new mineral to science. And so he had a new mineral. You know, it's fantastic that he had a new mineral named after him, but you could actually see it, because most of the 100 or so that are found here are absolutely tiny. But what's beautiful about this is the differential absorption. So the structure of this mineral, which is, I think it's related to millerite, is absorbing light differently down that axis than the upper axis, and when you get differential absorption, you get different colours, and that's called, of course, pleochroism. And so it's a beautiful example of a pleochroic new mineral, and every mineralogist and gemologist I know is insanely jealous. I mean, we were jealous of Federico Pizzotta when he had Pizzotta named after him, and now, of course, Lawrence followed suit with this mineral. So brilliant.
But like you say, it's amazing that it's not only large enough to see, but it has this color phenomenon in it that just makes it just a thrill to watch.
And these are cut as gemstones as well, so the gemstones are great. I know many people have got some pieces of this, but that one was Laurent's own piece. That's the piece that I presume he'll put in his pocket forever and always bring out and say, look, this is named after me.
I sure hope so. Al, we are 10 minutes over our 1 hour schedule, and we still have a few other things to do. We could probably keep going for another couple hours on this. But now, what we're going to do is we are going to do the segment of the show called 5 Quick-Fire Questions. I think you know how this works. I've got 5 questions. Each question has 2 answers. All of your answers are correct. The viewing audience has already answered, and they've tried to predict how you're going to answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you one question after the other, and you have to give me your immediate gut response on what is the correct answer. Do you understand how this goes?
I think so.
Okay, are you ready?
I am.
All right.
Hit me with it.
Question number 1. Preference in shirts, narrow fit in the chest, or cuffs that actually reach your wrists?
Narrow fit in the chest.
Narrow fit in the chest. Okay, question number 2. Is it pronounced Dubonnet or Dubonnet?
Dubonnet. Absolutely Dubonnet.
Question number 3. Best music to do mineral interviews to, George Michael or the Beatles?
The Beatles.
The Beatles. The Beatles wins. Okay. Question number 4. You ready for this one? This is a tough one.
Go for it.
The true champagne of rap, Rapper's Delight or Transformation?
Transformation. A change came over me.
Transformation! Okay, final question. Who's going to win, King Kong or Godzilla in the new movie that's coming out today?
Godzilla.
Godzilla! Oh, okay.
Totally. I love Godzilla. I used to watch that as a kid. It used to fascinate me, Godzilla, for some reason.
Well, hey, he is the king of the monsters. All right, Eloise, are you ready with the viewers' answers? Or are we doing this with Raquel today?
I'm here. I don't know why Raquel, maybe she wants to do it.
No, we were going to go to Raquel if it was too dark there in France, but the lighting is perfect. We can see your beautiful face. Are you ready with the answers?
I am. I think we all are.
Okay. Question number 1, preference in shirts, narrow fit in the chest or cuffs that reach your wrists? Alan
I think
said,
in this hour, people got to know their Alan. Narrow fit in the chests.
Narrow fit in the chest. Ding, ding, ding. I will keep that in mind when I buy you future What's Hot in Munich shirts, Al.
Yeah, please.
Question number 2, Dubonnet or Dubonnet? Oh, sorry, Al said Dubonnet.
Okay, so I will try to do the
Dubonnet.
not the French way. Dubonnet.
The viewers got it correct. Wow. Okay. Eloise, what is the actual correct way to pronounce it?
Dubonnet.
Dubonnet?
Oh, Dubonnet.
Dubonnet. That is my mom's favorite drink, and it also happens to be Al's mom's favorite drink. Okay,
Please.
Question number 3. Best music to do mineral interviews to, George Michael or the Beatles?
Went for the classic, the Beatles. Yes.
The Beatles.
Again, right.
Yes.
And that refers back to a What's Hot. What year was that, Al? Do you remember that we did that when What's Hot in Munich?
I think that was the first. No, that's the second one we did, wasn't it? With the Beatles songs.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Right before every
Awesome.
interview, Al, in the introduction when he was meeting the dealer, he would work into the conversation the name of a Beatles song, and then he'd look at the camera, smile, and ding, a little sparkle would happen on his teeth. And we were
And when you gave me obla di obla da, I had to get that into a conversation. It was with, who was that with now? I did it. I said something like obla di obla da. That's a killer specimen.
Absolutely. And not a single dealer understood it. The funniest thing is I was actually talking to Eloise after that came out, and she thought it was so funny every time you had the ding, but she didn't realize it was because you had just named the title of a Beatles song, so she had to go back and rewatch it. Okay, question number 4. The true champagne of rap. Rapper's Delight or Transformation? Al said Transformation.
I got a straight 50-50.
No way!
So actually, it's like there's this one vote of difference with Transformation. So I don't know if that counts. We will count it. We'll count it as right.
That counts. Al, you want to do Transformation song for us?
It was a full moon on the 6th of June, and I'll never forget that night because I changed from a slick brother to another. And boy, it was a terrible sight. You see, being Dr. Jekyll means that I can make about anything. So I made this juice to help me get looser on that. I wanted to see. You see, I had a notion to make a potion, but I needed a guinea pig. I looked around. I said, what the heck, huh? And then I took a swig. Then, all of a sudden, I fell to the floor. The hairs got up my hands. My eyes got big. My teeth grew long. I was a regular monster, man. It was a transformation. I remember that. I remember I sang that in Tucson in front of Catherine Donnell and
right.
Mackenzie and Terry Ottaway, and we were just howling with laughter because every time there's a full moon, something happens.
It comes out again. We'll try to get that on video someday. All right, final question. Kong versus Godzilla. Al went with Godzilla. Eloise, what did the viewers say?
King Kong.
King
So that's the
Kong.
only on. Yes.
Okay. That's 4
No
out
one
of 5.
knows me. No one knows me, Brian.
I know, it's tragic, Al. It's tragic. All right, we're at the Q&A session. Eloise, Raquel, do we have questions that the audience has for Mr. Hart, Alan Hart?
Yes, we have a lot of questions. Sorry, I'm still laughing. I was expecting you to stop at some point with the rap, but you just kept going and going.
I did stop.
Oh, wow, okay. That was great. Thank you. So I'm going to start with some of the, let me start with a question from Carlos Torres. He asked, would it be good to get the FGA even if someone has already the GG? And maybe you can explain to the audience what's the GG.
Oh, that's such a loaded question.
Yes.
Okay, well, the GG is from the GIA, our great friends of GEMA, I must admit. And they're quite different qualifications, really, but they're quite different way of teaching it. I would say, of course, I would say as GEMA CEO that you have to do the FGA. See, what you're doing now is you're doing a diploma in gemology, which allows you to become a fellow of the Gemological Association. And I think what our FGA does give you, again, is that conceptual. It's a very difficult, it's known to be difficult, but I think that difficulty is highly valued and you will be a really good gemologist when you have it.
When did you get your FGA, Alan?
I actually got my FGA just after I did the diamond exhibition at the museum, would you believe? Oh, wow. And, I came from the museum environment and I thought, I need to know more about gems. And so I did the qualification itself. And many people said, what are you doing that for? You're working at the museum. But it absolutely gave me a really rounded depth and breadth about not only what I knew already, but about the gem industry as a whole, and other things like cutting, how things are set, value, because there are very different criteria in gemology in terms of value than in mineralogy. So it's a really good course.
I also had it.
Yeah, you did it as well, of course. Yeah,
a few years ago. And it was also because I remember going out with collectors and they would tell me, that is a fascinating ruby. And I would be like, okay, why? So it was more to really learn about what is really into the gems because it's quite different to minerals. So I highly recommend it. I learn a lot and I still use it.
Yeah, opening doors, yeah.
Thank you. So let's go with, let's move more into kind of temporary. Mineralogy parameters. Which book would you recommend for understanding the basis of crystal growing?
There's so many crystal growth books. Mineralogy for amateurs is still a good book. The concepts of that are there, But I'll tell you what. Now there's some really good websites around. If you want to look at crystal growth, I think the best thing to do is search for crystal growth, and then when you get information that repeats itself through many websites, can be true, but be careful. Because I tell you what, on the internet, there's a lot of information, but maybe there's not enough facts out there. This understanding which is the correct thing to read. But I would always go with like Phillips Crystallography, Mineralogy for Amateurs. The classics the concepts are still right.
Right.
Sunagawa.
Pardon?
And the book from Sunagawa as well.
Ah, okay.
I just need one question. I will get back. From Greg Jacobs, he said he can get enough of these Feast for the Eyes mineral videos. Are you planning to keep up with your virtual reality technology in 4K to share the experience in a more immersed way?
Well, I don't know, actually. I don't know where we'll go. I think what I do find is from my early videos that as the phone technology gets better, the camera technology gets better. And then Brian's always on my case about getting the right color combinations and things. But I think there's a lot of opportunity. As I was thinking of looking at some YouTube videos and things like that, and expanded somewhat. But I must admit, I've got quite a big day job to do as well, so I can't spend all my time doing videos. So it really is an additional hobby. It keeps me involved with the subject, and actually. It opens a lot of doors. So people now want to show me their stuff, and I love it when people come out of the woodwork and say, do you want to look at my specimens? Because that is great.
I bet they trust you. Maybe Bindra, what was the most moving mineral you have ever handled? And what was the most moving gem you have ever handled?
Who's that from?
David Bindra.
Oh, my man. Sorry, yeah, Dave. Well, no, the most moving... Oh, that's a horrible question, Dave. I'll tell you the gem first. The gem was that I borrowed, would you believe, the Millennium Star Diamond, 203 carats. It was at the Millennium Dome in London. It's worth 100 million. And that came into the museum, and I had to sign it over to the museum, and it was put into my hand. And there was a moment when I thought, 100 million. And it was horrible. And it was like, just don't drop it. Don't drop it.
Yeah, you thought about dropping it. Where the minute as you don't think about
No, this
that.
one I did because of the consequence. Imagine if it was like, if I dropped this, the museum's insured it for 100 million, then would the museum afford the insurance? We'd have to close for 5 years to pay the bill. So there's other factors in there that come. But I think the emotion was that, how long did this thing grow? Who cut it? Where did it come from? How did it get here? I'm holding it in my hands. My whole life sort of flashed before me. But I think for the mineral, the most emotional mineral, I tell you what, there's a set of minerals in the museum, Proustites, the ruby silvers. They have to be kept in a drawer. You've got some great ones in your collection. Most museum collections have. You can't show them. So every now and then you can have a look for yourself in a sneak peek. For the people that are here, they fade on exposure to light, and the ones we have in the museum are absolutely superb. We have a single crystal, I think it's about this big. And when you look at that, you think, wow, it's an earth treasure that we really shouldn't be showing anyone. And so it's sort of that's a hard thing to take in, but that's an emotional thing to get through in a way.
So, in a related question by Steve Matlansky, do you have a favorite mineral gem, species or variety? Come on, talk about your black minerals, Alan. You love your black minerals.
Oh, no, I do.
Yeah, the audience thinks you just love your aquamarine and your rhodo and beautiful colors, but that's not the truth.
No, I do like my black ugly rocks, I must admit, because they usually have lovely form and you don't get sidetracked by things like colour. But I tell you what, my favourite gem, I love spinels. I do love spinels, a really nice. I mean, Dave Bindra, he showed me some lilac spinels that were like, oh, Dave, don't show me this. But crystals on matrix. I love gem species on matrix as well that aren't cut. So ruby crystals I love as well from Mogok. Some of the old ruby crystals are just superb. I like emeralds. I know you like emeralds. I like emeralds because of the colour. And the form and the fact it comes from Colombia, and Colombia seems like I was in Colombia and it was such an exotic and beautiful place. And then you find in these horrible black rocks these beautiful green crystals. What's such a contrast? Yeah.
You cannot choose, basically. No, you did. I guess you did. I think we have
Sorry.
We have a last question by Sarah Greenfield. I don't know exactly to which specimen she refers, but she said, how do you know if it's not grown in a lab? So I don't know if it was the Paraíba tourmaline. Maybe, yeah, sorry.
Or was it the ruby? It might be the ruby. But yeah, well, let's have many minerals now, many gemstones are grown in a laboratory. Natural stones are really expensive. And so to widen it to the consumer, you make them in a lab and you sell them slightly cheaper. It's all very kosher, it's fine. But of course, we need to, in gemology, you need to know whether something is a synthetic or an imitation and what treatment is undergone. And for the rubies, what they used to do was they used to melt aluminium oxide, and then they used to add a bit of chromium, and then they used to drip it onto a rotating spindle, and the melt would go onto this spindle, move down the end and crystallized, and it would form a ruby in the end. And then you just chop that off, and then you cut it into a gemstone. But in nature, when the crystals grow, the internal structure of the crystals is usually planar. It's straight because the crystals go straight. But on these balls, they were called ruby balls, the inside was curved. So if you get your loupe or a hand lens or your microscope and you look carefully under the microscope, if you saw curved banding, you could say to yourself, this is a synthetic ruby. If you saw straight banding, then it could be a synthetic. But of course, a natural. But then a few years later, another method came along, flux-grown rubies that had straight banding. So then you say to yourself, if I can see platinum platelets or other types of inclusions that don't occur in nature, then I can still say, oh, this one is synthetic because it's a different structure from the natural. So really, the way to tell is to look with your eyes, be really observant, understand what features make up natural specimens and what features make up synthetics or imitations. And sometimes you have to send things to the laboratory to get bigger analytical tests with very expensive equipment to look at the trace elements or look under electron microscope to see the growth features before you can make that decision. And I think the great thing about gemology is that it's a fast-paced, moving science. You always have to keep ahead of the game. You have to do a lot of research. And through that, there's some fantastic researchers out there, like yourself, like Eloise, like many of the people in the labs that do this sort of thing for a living. And it's great.
Maybe get your FGA in the first place, and that would answer a lot of your questions regarding synthetics versus natural gemstones.
And treatments.
I didn't want to say that. But Yeah,
also GIA. We have these two great non-for-profit focus on gemology.
And the same thing. There is a French institution as well for learning gemstones.
Yeah, Emmanuel Frisch as well does some fantastic work. One of the world's great gemologists. I love Emmanuel. He's a cool guy.
Okay, Brian, 2:28. No more questions.
Oh, come on. One more question. Al, what makes a great mineral?
Oh, it's something you love. If you love it, it's a great mineral. It can be a tiny fragment. It could be something that's a $10 million specimen. If you love the specimen, it's a great mineral. But for my eyes, it would be something that's superbly crystalline, got a great colour, beautiful association. It was owned by somebody famous. You now own it. Everything that's superlative about it. It's got a brilliant story about it, and something unusual. I mean, I must admit, sometimes when I see you can see rows and rows of the same specimen, but when you see something that just makes you think a bit, like there's a feature on it that's different, that makes a great mineral.
Fantastic. Al, thank you so much for joining us. For all the viewers out there.
Thank you, everyone. Brian, can I take the opportunity to say you guys have done a great job with this series, yeah? And also, everyone who's ever trusted me with a specimen in a car park anywhere around the world, I thank you so much. Because only with you am I able to look at my Instagram and go like, "Ooh, it's so exciting." So yeah, great to see you all. And hopefully we'll come out of this, we'll get back to the show, and we'll have a beer together.
Absolutely. Cannot wait. Thanks, Al, for being on the show. For all you viewers out there, stay tuned. Check BlueCap Productions' YouTube channel tomorrow. We're going to be releasing our episode 38. That was done with Dr. Alex Schaus, and we talked about thumbnails, and that was a wonderful show that originally aired March 10th. Next week, we are going to have Dr. Elizabeth Ramp, the geologist from NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, on our show, and she's going to be talking about her work on the geology of Mars. So that is going to be absolutely fascinating. Wow. So we hope to see all of you next week. Again, thank you. Have a fantastic week. Have a great weekend. Aloha.
Thank you to all of you. Thank you, Alan. See you next week. Mwah.
Thank you.
Al, great to see you, mate. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, man.
Terrific episode.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.